My guest now, Vehbi Baysan. He joins me in the studio. He's an associate professor of history at Ibn Haldun University. Thank you for being with me again in the studio. Looking at these pictures, what does it make you feel as both a Turkish citizen and a historian that has very extensively researched the history of this country?
Well, of course, more so from the point of history, from where to where we came. I think that's quite significant achievement. And I was trying to explain that we Turks never got occupied. So we don't have point of reference to others. Whatever we did, whatever we achieved, whatever we are seeing in those cool waters of Bosphorus, all made by us, by Turks, with our own education, with our own engineers. So this is what I see. And proudly, of course, seeing in that 100 years, in the first couple of decades, of course, very careful management of economy, because we also inherited war reparations coming out of World War I, and then the massacres in the Balkans, having hundreds and millions of refugees coming into Turkey. But thereafter, you're going into the multi-party systems, investing heavily in primary education as well as the higher education. And now, of course, I keep always talking about it, that the postgraduate institutions are developing further, and the system, the government, making the funds available for more research and for more projects. This is to say that perhaps soon again we'll be seeing much better defense systems, much better institutions, because we inherited in that 100 year, but obviously, as you mentioned in your comments, that it did not just start in 1920s. That's the continuation of the Ottoman Empire or the past, because all these gentlemen, as well as our women, all educated in these schools, Ottoman military academies, etc. And they demonstrated to the world that it can be done.
Right.
I think this is what matters. In 1920s, they did not have any outside force to tell them what to do, but yet they declared republic. I think we should read it from that perspective. They could have just announced anything, but they opted for pluralism and for humans or the individuals or citizens' participation in democratic process. And thereafter, the changes they made in the system, which would later became point of reference for future developments. I think this is quite very, very important. Mm-hmm. But having done so or still doing so, it was equally important to keep the roots, keep the tradition, keep the accumulated knowledge of our grandparents coming from Ottoman Empire. So what I'm trying to say is that it not happened in one day. We did not became a republic in one day, in like 29 October, we wake up one day and we are a republic or etc. No, it is the long time process, because I'm myself, my PhD is on the Tanzimat period, Tanzimat reforms. It was an arduous and it was really difficult process. But we should understand and appreciate that whatever has been done in this country with our own resources, with our own education, and with our own man. So I think that's what matters.
Talk to us a bit about those difficulties and how success was born essentially from those difficulties. If you were to choose 3 milestone events from 1923 to date, what would they be?
Well, first of all, it seems that the institutions where all these decision makers during the early Republican era graduated, they were really well funded. And they had a good education. They were able to read the world. They were able to read the global changes, and they managed to put the course of the republic accordingly. So that's, I think, the major achievement. And number two, although we had some obstacles, 1960, 1971, 1980, the military takeovers and all that, but yet our political parties refused to go underground. No matter what had happened, they formed new parties and they went into elections and into politics. I think this is a great achievement. they never gave up. They never give up. And I mean, just caricaturizing it to my students, I say we Turks are hard learners, but yet it's a great thing, which means any obstacle, anything, you don't give up. You just make a new party, you go on. So it's extremely important. That tradition always remained overground. So you see, and furthermore, in the last at least couple of decades, we see a heavy investment in higher education, and our institutions increasingly becoming global, increasingly becoming or cooperating internationally, and increasingly we are having international students come and study in here for a semester or two through Erasmus or other exchange programs, as well as Turkey's scholarship scheme bringing in thousands of students, and they are doing very well. I have many students of them. I'm proud of them. And seeing, for example, just an ordinary folk from mid-Africa coming here and conversing with me in Turkish, and also knows about Turkish history. So when they go back, you can see that they have happy, good memories. So
right.
it's
what's
great.
their perspective? Because it's always interesting to hear from the younger generation, especially ones that are in university, about milestone events like this one. How do they feel about the Republic of Turkey marking its 100th anniversary?
Well, I think there is a sense in the history. They find it like always we had to memorize some dates and events. Whereas when we come to university, we have this platform where we can discuss about them. That's where it matters. So then they appreciate that all these, what happened there, actually what made us today, and all the opportunities we are having today. And they're proud of it, no doubt about it. But I think it should be, I'm just from here also voicing my concerns, that it should be more debatable events rather than just asking our students to memorize things. So like I was yesterday at a high school explaining these things, they really, middle school kids really appreciated it. Like when you involve them in the discussion, and they know a lot and they want to know a lot. And they ask me these beautiful questions. These are like secondary school kids, boys and girls. Like I started sweating. It's great. It means there are things that they're seeing, they appreciate, and they want to know more.
Right.
I think that's the great thing.
Well, looking back at the history of Türkiye, we went through a lot of political struggles as well. Part of those political struggles was several coups that took place in our history. The last one was an attempted coup that we saw happen back in 2016, but we saw an extreme amount of resilience from the Turkish public. Talk to us a bit about that notion and how resilient the Turkish public was on the night of July 15.
Well, July 15, actually I was live on a Turkish television when the news started coming in that there are some warplanes flying low in Ankara as well as in Istanbul. And then some soldiers showed up on our Bosphorus bridge, like our viewers can see now. This became like a surreal, and especially for me because I was a director for a very good institution international from the US, bringing students here. In return, I would go and visit US universities talking about Turkey and the Middle East. And in my talks, I always insisted that we had a very bad experience with these military coups, never helped our democracy. And, but now we have a new generation. They are more kind of following global events, and they're better than their predecessors, that they speak good foreign languages and all that. So we will never have a military coup again. And despite they asked me all these questions, I was like, no. I never does about any other subject. I would be never this stubborn. But yet that night, actually, we realized that soon. It was 8 p.m. and around 9 p.m. it was obvious. First, we thought there was something like a terrorist attack or something on the Bosphorus bridge, but then they just simply blocked one side of it. We realized that it was a military coup taking place. And I remember there was no one in studio left. All they went to the streets said, this is unacceptable. Enough is enough, and we're not going to accept it. But of course, there is a human side of it. So I somehow managed to come back to my house because I had a little girl and her mom was not at home for an international trip. And soon I lost my daughter, and I find her crying under the blanket because the low-flying airplanes really scared them.
Right.
Now, what I'm trying to say with all these martyrs, we call them more than 250 of them, they didn't deserve this. I mean, like, they were innocent citizens just defending their rights because they wanted to live with their own dignity.
Right.
And didn't want to,
Ultimately, it was foiled by the Turkish public.
Yes,
it was,
absolutely.
Absolutely amazing scenes that we saw on that night. Professor Vehbi Baysan, we'll leave it there for now. Thank you for that analysis.